Hey guys, welcome back to episode 19 of Amazing Entrepreneurs. This is titled, When in Doubt, Clear Them Out. I'm joined with Tabitha Poole from Potty Time with Tabby. So clear it out, clear out your schedules, set aside some time, and rock with us on this episode. Guys and gals, welcome back to another exciting episode of Amazing Entrepreneurs. Today, I have Tabitha Poole here, and I'm going to let you introduce your company. So what a unique and interesting and exciting conversation we have to clear out today.
We absolutely
no pun intended.
It's a funny kind of job.
Right.
I'm Tabitha Poole, and I'm a potty training consultant.
So a potty training consultant, and you've got we met at a marketing event, and we were telling me a little bit about your story, and I think you're a little bit more than just a potty training consultant, because it seems like, is that a nanny, or is that something? She's a little bit or she's got some expertise here. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up here in South Florida, I'll even say.
Absolutely. I mean, you can probably tell I'm not from around here.
Okay.
So I grew up in Australia.
Oh, wow.
And I am an occupational therapist. I've practiced for about 13 years.
Okay.
Mostly with children. I've worked in a number of different places across cities in Australia, country towns across England and Scotland. And I fell into this wonderful little niche of continents, not like the country continent, but the continents as in your bowel and bladder.
Gotcha.
And at first, I worked with children in a very general sense, very generic role. And my morning would be seeing kids for handwriting help. Then I'd be working on their social skills. Then I'd be prescribing a wheelchair. And it was just so broad. But the one thing I didn't do was potty training. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to manage it. I didn't have any kids.
Right.
So every time I got a child, I would send them away to this specialist team. And they were like wizards.
Really?
They would just solve all of my problems. The kids would not only come back potty trained, but they would come back eating better, sleeping better, behaving better, paying attention in school, happier, healthier.
Oh, wow.
And just glowing.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this wizardry? So I joined the team.
Oh, okay.
And practiced in that team for over 8 years. And then I started up my own team.
Wow.
And that brought me here.
Oh, wow. So... And this was, where was this, is this in South Florida, or where is this located at?
So my first business was in Australia, Western Australia, Perth, beautiful Perth.
Okay.
And then...
West, because I'm like Perth, West. Okay, so
yeah,
West Australia.
Coast.
Okay, West Coast.
Yeah, close to the beach.
Okay.
And then I traveled around the US. I love to travel. And fell in love with Miami and decided to make it my home.
Nice. So how long have you been stateside?
I've been living here for almost 2 months.
Okay.
So it's pretty fresh.
Yes. I knew it was fresh.
Really fresh. However, I've been traveling back and forth for the last couple of years.
Okay. So let's rewind a little bit. So you started off, you're an occupational therapist, and when you started, now you've gone to, so you still have the business back in Australia?
I do. I still have a business and a business partner in Australia, helping children and families with continence and potty training there.
Right. And I guess remote work is really you are basically kind of like a digital nomad, so to speak. And
absolutely.
And so you can have like effective consultations and sessions with individuals and families and people who are away from you physically, but you're able to still have that nice, effective approach in regard wizarding.
Yeah. We can still perform our wizardry. I have a business partner that's based in Perth, Western Australia.
Okay.
And so she does a lot of the face-to-face work. And of course, I travel back there. I love traveling. I love to see my home, my family, and all of my beautiful clients.
Gotcha. And so you are in the healthcare industry, and I know that's one of the large sectors of I was actually at a networking event earlier today, and one of the big things that I've noticed in South in South Florida, or really the I would say the business landscape, is this idea of telemed, right? Or where they come out to your house and they do it, especially in South Florida. In South Florida, it's a big deal because, we're, jokingly say it's God's waiting room, right? So it's like, we're not, people aren't physically able to get to a doctor's office or whatever. So if somebody can, drive a van or truck down to you and have like an on-site consultation and perform the same services like an in-home healthcare.
Absolutely.
And yet I think
A
that's
locum service.
well, it's booming, because like I've heard of a couple different businesses, and this is and I was thinking, I was like, man, we got to have a conversation about this a little bit later on, because they were an occupational therapist, and to me, what is so for the people who aren't familiar with it, right? So what is occupational therapist?
Occupational therapy is a beautiful field. It's very broad. Basically, we help people do stuff by doing stuff.
Okay.
So therapy is really focusing on whatever day-to-day activities are meaningful and motivating for that client, and helping them achieve whatever outcome they need to. Occupational therapists work in a multitude of different fields. A lot of OTs, occupational therapists, OT work in mental health, helping people develop motivation, get jobs, that sort of thing. There's also a really classical area like vocational rehabilitation. You get injured at work, and OT will help you get back to work. And a lot of people, I guess that's the classic OT. That's what people will think about.
I always think about OT as in like, hey, a rehabilitation centers or whatever, not like a substance abuse, but like more of a, I was in a car wreck or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injury, lots of neurology, so stroke, neurological conditions, and a huge portion of OTs work in pediatrics, work with kids.
Yeah.
And they help kids to just be able to take care of themselves and help their parents be able to function in this world.
Speaking of kids, question, because like my kid saw a speech therapist. Is that an occupational therapy? Is that kind of in the same vein, or is that like a...
Similar. So that's allied health. Allied health would be like the umbrella term. And then you'd get speech pathologists, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, or physical therapists, I think they're called here.
What's the difference between occupational and physical therapist?
So a physical therapist will work more with the musculature and the kinetic, like biomechanics, to be able to achieve physical tasks.
Okay.
An occupational therapist will focus more on goal achievement that's probably a little bit more broad. So for example, my goal might be, after a car accident, I want to be able to cook for my family again. The physical therapist might be able to help you get out of your bed, be able to walk again, access the cupboards and the different resources that you need to be able to cook. The OT is going to help you with sequencing that task, finding a recipe, being able to follow a recipe, finding... if you have a physical disability, finding different assistive technologies to help you to be able to perform that task competently and safely.
Gotcha. And so is it like, I know in America, I'm sure there's some sort of like certification, or in Australia. So a lot of times you go to school, right, and you get like a 4-year degree, or, how is it in Australia versus like here? What's the differences between, because, one of the things that I see, we have a lot of people immigrating here, right?
Absolutely.
And trying to, they're like, hey, I have a successful business somewhere else. Like, how can I bring that over here? What is, with your specific case, like what is the training or knowledge needed in order to get into your field?
So I did my training in Australia, in Perth, and it's in Australia you can do either an undergraduate degree and become an occupational therapist, like a Bachelor of Science in occupational therapy, or you can do a master's degree, which is a lot shorter. But again, so it'll be maybe 2 years full time, but it assumes you already have a degree in a relevant field. So it has to be, you have to have some basics. They're going to assume you know your anatomy, physiology. They're going to, if you don't know what your popliteal surface is day one, you're going to struggle.
I'm going to struggle right now. Yeah. So,
But
okay.
the system in America is a little bit different. Most people, most professionals in my field would have a master's degree. So they would
Okay.
have gone to school for an undergrad and then done a master's. And so there is, differences in how school works, how like all of that sort of stuff works. Which is why one of the reasons that I'm focusing on being a potty training consultant, not only because that's what I think is the most interesting and fun and engaging part of my job,
Right.
but it also allows me to build a business that's not necessarily anchored to the healthcare industry.
Right. Right. And you are in the field, but like you're kind of in the industry in of itself. So it's cool. So when you started, you became an OT, right? And so you said you worked in the industry for how long before you branched out on your own?
Before I started my own business, I was an occupational therapist, I'd say for about 12 years.
Okay, so you've been doing this. I mean, you're a seasoned vet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Old hat.
Right. Look, I earned my stripes. Okay, so like we've been through mounds of shit. So I'm not playing. I was like, all right, I'm not going to pick these like low hanging like jokes, but
It's too hard,
yeah,
isn't it?
I know. I'm gonna push straight through them. So we're gonna go straight through the puns. All right, now that that's cleared out, let's keep going.
Let's go.
No, but so you were in on the, so you were working through this, right? And all right, and we were working through it. So you were in the field, and when did you decide, hey, this is I don't want to work for somebody, or is it something like, how did you kind of start the jump from working from somebody to working for yourself?
So I was really lucky. I was employed by a really great organization that taught me so much. I was surrounded by amazing professionals, a wonderful team. However, I found, as so many people do, I think you get so bogged down in process and forms. And I realized that whilst I was coming to work 7.5 hours a day, I was only seeing clients for maybe 5 of those hours and doing, admin tasks for the rest of that time. And sometimes not even that long, there would be so much admin overhead. And I really, honestly, just wanted to spend more time with my clients.
Right.
And for a lot of people, they said that sounds wild, a little bit crazy. When you go out on your own, you start your own business, the assumption is you're going to spend a lot more time doing administrative work, and because it's all on you, especially if you're the only one in the company, which I was when I started out.
Right.
But that just wasn't the case for me.
Nice.
I spend more time face-to-face, virtually or otherwise, with my clients, with the kids, than I spent previously. And I don't have to follow anyone's dumb process anymore.
Right. And that sounds like it's you really enjoy working with kids. So you were working with all ages, but like now you've kind of like...
I tried working with adults for a couple of months, and I swiftly went back to kids.
Right.
Where else can you, play? I have this great game. I should have brought it today, but it's called Fishing for Floaters. And it sounds exactly what, it is exactly what it says on the box. And there's little poops. You put them in a little swimming pool, and you've got a little net or a little fishing rod. And whilst I'm not trying to teach kids to fish poos out of anywhere, it's really helpful to break the ice. Where else can you pull out that game? You pull that game out with your adult clients, they're not gonna. That's not gonna play.
No, I try. And I have 2 toddlers, right? So we kind of. And the pooping was a problem for my big one. Where my little ones, like, we're still going through it. So like she's still kind of graduating on from, like, she was super proud. She did her first poop like a couple weeks ago. Like, I know we were so she was so proud of herself.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because she was like, it's like, I was just could not be more proud. And
That's really
as
cool.
like a parent, you're like, because you can see it's like a milestone for them.
It is. My best work day is when I get a text from a parent, and there are no words, but there is a photograph of a poop in a toilet, and I'm jumping up and down, clapping my hands.
Most people would be like
horrified.
What the?
Yeah, if anyone steals my work phone, they're giving it back quick, smart.
Yeah. They're like, nope. This is some
It was some crazy shit.
Yeah, but and potty training is like one of the natural things that you kind of. But I know a little bit about your story too. There's a specific sort of child that typically struggles with it.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit more about like the corner case, because like obviously like infants, toddlers, you're going to get into like potty training, but who else? What other specific special sort of case that you work with that really has challenges that probably the typical public doesn't realize?
Well, I think that probably 80% of my caseload, 80% of the kids that I work with are autistic. And that they're a wonderful population. It throws up so many different challenges. Autistic people generally see the world a little bit differently. They have different sensory preferences than you and I.
Very much.
And then sensory preferences aren't always the same between them. People have this kind of maybe stereotypical view of they don't like loud noises and they're not social and they don't like crowds. But I work with lots of kids that love a crowd, love loud noises, and are super, super social. But maybe they struggle with tactile stimulation. So the feeling of that cold toilet seat on their butt, they're not going to go near it.
Yeah.
Or they have real aversion to different types of foods that we know are healthy for bowel.
Right.
And so they end up, having these issues, whether it's constipation, maybe they have reduced ability to sense what's happening inside their bodies. Like, think about it. When we're sitting here and maybe I've drunk 3 coffees this morning, which I actually haven't, but imagine my bladder.
Cleared straight out.
Yeah, right. Yeah. My bladder and my bowel are going to start telling me something.
Right.
And those sensations come from within.
Right.
Now, we don't think about it because we're fully fledged adults. We got good, self-regulation skills. But if my body is and my brain is so concerned what's happening in my outside world because there's distracting sensations going on, the lights are too bright, the teacher's too loud, the seat is scratchy, my jumper is scratchy, then I miss those internal cues.
Right.
And it means I don't act on them.
Right.
And that can lead to lots of different continence issues. And it's super common. So it's a third of all children, whether they have a diagnosis or not, a third of all children will experience constipation at some point.
Really?
That's huge, right?
Yeah. Well, it's, and this is one of the things that like is kind of near and dear to me because I have a family member that is, they're a teenager and I know specifically it was a problem for them, and it still is, it still is a challenge for like, and even if by using them, but it's like all the activities like wiping and doing it properly, it's like all of a thing. And the eating is like, because they all are different. Because when you hear autistic, you think, you probably, I don't know what the standard, but I know what ours, very quiet, plays on his iPad, is very chilled, has his headphones on, is good to go. Happy as can be. Particular eater. Very, very particular eater,
Absolutely.
And it kind of like the diet, getting them to eat anything outside of what they're currently, comfortable with is just like moving a mountain. And
it really is.
Do you spend a lot of time like helping with the diet as well? Or is it just... Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, what goes in must come out, right?
Right.
I mean, you hope it does. Sometimes that's not always the case. And we have big problems.
Right.
However, I'm not a dietitian.
Right.
So it's not my bread and butter. But I've worked with amazing dietitians and I've learned a lot of things along the way. So a really hot topic at the moment is obviously looking after your gut microbiome and the impact that has not only on your digestive health, but also your mental health, your whole global self. And so working on diet is almost essential in my field. And whilst I'm not going to do a full nutritional profile and tell you, okay, you're vitamin K and D deficient, I am going to look at, take a bit more of a macro view and look at what sort of foods are you eating, where are you getting those foods, what is your fiber content for the day? Fiber is really important.
Yeah.
Is it soluble, insoluble fiber? If you don't tolerate foods with fiber in very well, so you can't eat them because you have a sensory preference that prevents you from that being a safe food for you, then how do we get creative and how do we build that in? How do we help expose you to these foods in a non-threatening way? A lot of people will think that you just sit a kid down and you just don't give them anything else to eat. But I've seen kids that will literally starve themselves for days if you don't give them a preferred safe food. So it's just not that easy.
Right. So challenging and an experience. So it's a lot more than like what I had originally kind of anticipated. And like my personal experience is kind of let me understand it a little bit more and appreciate it a little bit more from both sides of the spectrum, from both a toddler perspective and the autistic perspective, where it's like a challenge for both. And so you are you practicing OT work here, or is it what? So, and tell me a little bit more about your transition here stateside, and like what the plan is for the brand. And I know you said you brought on a partner. I do want to go into like what it is, because you were just a solopreneur for a while, right?
I was, yeah, absolutely. Up until very recently.
Okay.
And I have a wonderful business partner she's based in Australia.
Okay.
And we have recently done a little bit of a rebrand for our Australian side. But here in the US, I really want to focus on helping children and families with potty training, because it is such an important life milestone.
Right.
And so my business here is Toilet Time with Tabby.
Okay.
How cute is that?
I love it. I love the logo.
The logo is good.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Honestly, we're 20 episodes into this, give or take an episode or two. But like, I think this is episode 19. I'll have to double check it. But best logo I've seen thus far. Yes. Even stronger. I mean, the Amazing Entrepreneur, strong
it's a good
logo.
One. Strong logo.
Not quite the poo emoji. So, but
it's classic.
Yeah.
Can't go past it.
So you guys are doing a little bit of a rebranding over, so tell me how the dynamic is working there. So tell me about your partner. You brought her in. Okay. And so what's her background?
So she is a registered nurse.
Okay.
She studied intellectual disability nursing in Ireland.
Okay.
And she is
intellectual disability
nursing.
What is?
So, to be diagnosed with an intellectual disability, there's a few, to be diagnosed with anything, you've got to hit a few criteria. And one of the criteria is that you have an IQ of less than 70.
Okay. So like almost a Down syndrome, is that what?
No, so Down syndrome is a genetic condition where it's a chromosomal condition.
Right,
so
right.
A lot of people with Down syndrome will also have an intellectual disability. Similar to a lot of people with autism, autistic people will have a diagnosis of an intellectual disability, but not necessarily. Same with other diagnoses such as cerebral palsy. Again, maybe has a diagnosis of intellectual disability, but also may not. It impacts your ability to learn skills. You need a little bit more time. You need to be shown in a few different ways.
Okay.
It takes a little bit more patience. It doesn't mean that they can't learn. It just means that they need to be taught in the right way.
Right. And so she's a nurse, and then she specializes or has worked with patients with intellectual disabilities.
Absolutely. And she's a continence consultant. She's been doing this for longer than I have. And so she's really, really knowledgeable. And she was my mentor for a long time. So I was lucky to fish her in.
Yeah, okay. No pun intended. Like, we're going to keep going down this road, right? No, but so we reeled her in, right? And so we reeled her in, and so she came on board. How was that? How was the process or the you don't have to share all the details, but how did you select her? How were you comfortable with her? Did you guys have like a lot of talks in between and before? Like say you're a solopreneur and you're listening to this episode right now and you're thinking to yourself, hey, when I started this, I just wanted to have a job where I enjoyed interacting and I could do my own thing and I could just have what I was comfortable with, and that's what I had. But then at some point in time, life changes, and my goals from 5 years ago when I started this is now shifted into, hey, maybe I want to expand it a little bit, or maybe I want to add like another offering that doesn't necessarily match my skill set, and I have somebody, and I'm considering bringing somebody on. So like, I know this was a mentor, but how did you cross that bridge, or when did you start thinking about like making that jump to partner?
It really, you hit the nail on the head there, at giving an offering of something that I can't do.
Right.
So I'm very good at talking shit.
Right.
I'm very good at that. However, I'm not trained as a nurse. I
Right.
can't really give advice on a child's catheters or bowel washout systems. That's not my bread and butter.
Okay.
I have enough knowledge to know when I need to refer on, which
Okay.
is a really important skill. However, all of the best available evidence that we have on continence management, managing bowel and bladder, wee and poo, is that it takes a multidisciplinary team. It's not a simple area to work in. It's complex.
Right.
So we need to be working in a team. And whilst I really enjoyed working on my own and having that freedom to do whatever I wanted, I found I had to constantly refer on and ensure that clients were getting the best service, not missing out, and ensuring that they had that wraparound service. And that's really what we want to build.
Gotcha. And when you referred them on, was there, and I don't know if it's different industries in America can and cannot do it depending on like ethics, but like when you refer people off, do they kick you back typically, or is it something
No.
that's what I was saying. Like if I'm referring stuff off, like to me, it's like I'm watching money kind of go, and I'm just a business guy, right? So like when I'm referring it off, I'm like, well, there goes business, 'cause-
Interesting. I see what you mean. It is really interesting, and that's something I was thinking about. Yeah, I was thinking about this podcast, what we're going to chat about. And when we talk about entrepreneurship, that's really a means to an ends for me.
Okay.
It's not the end goal.
Okay.
I love having my own businesses. I love working for myself. But my real goal is to spend time with children and families, with other professionals, educating other professionals on how to manage these really complex, life-changing conditions.
Right.
And being able to work for myself, build a brand, build a business is really just the straightest path in order to reach the most people and have the biggest impact.
Well, see, I think, and like to me, a good entrepreneur, a good offering, and I say like money, because there's a couple different ways you can look at it. Like I look at it as like, hey, yes, like I don't like sending money away, especially especially if it might. A lot of times, what I'm already working with, I'm going to have to we're going to have to experience this anyways. So it's like, hey, I'm not like, we're doing potty training consulting, you come and you have COVID or whatever. I'm not sending you to a doctor. Like that, to me, that's two totally unrelated things. But if we're having potty training issues, like, and we need to talk about your diet and how to introduce that, and that's just not my specialty, right? But A, I'm sending money out, right? And B, not only am I sending money out, but am I really giving the best? Because I can hear it from you. Your passion, like my number one, it's a means to an end to fixing a problem that I love solving for people, and I see their lights come on. But whenever if I have that service or that item on that SKU, I guess, on my line card, right? So instead of like if I'm hey, potty training consulting, and then I've got like nutrition consulting, and then I have this and this. It's to me a better overall experience too.
Absolutely. And when I say a multidisciplinary approach, whilst I have amazing clinicians that I know of and people that I can refer to, it doesn't, and we will take the time to chat about the case together and put in that. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that we're going to, or indeed the client will give consent to share all of our notes, all of our prior assessments. And so you really need people in your team to provide a wraparound service. You need to be meeting with all of those people. You need to be understanding the nuances of what your goals are for this client, what my goals are for this client, and how we can work together to get the best outcome.
Understood. So, so you selected her from just years of experience and years of knowledge, and like saying, hey, this is going to be an effective means to my end, and will also make more money. The best business, because a good entrepreneur is like, hey, I'm not going to start a business just to make a crap ton of money. Because if that's your goal, you're going to quit.
I'm in the wrong industry.
You're going to quit, because there's going to be times where it's like, especially when you're past like building up like your business, or if I'm not a solopreneur, If I say I want to build up a business and like I need different things to happen, and stuff's just not going to work out. We're going
Absolutely.
and you're going to quit.
Yeah, you've got to be in it for the right reason, and especially working with children and families. They can see you a mile away. If
Right.
you are genuine, if you know your thing, you know your stuff, know your shit, then they're gonna know.
Right.
If you are just trying to see them to bill another hour and over servicing and not adding value to their family, they'll be able to tell real quick. If I'm able to say, whoa, this is a little bit outside my scope, but I know this really great professional that you can see who's going to help you along this journey further than I would be able to,
Right.
they'll remember that. And parents talk.
Right,
You're a
right.
parent, you talk.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna tell you something. Because like to me, I hear stuff like that, and especially if it's not like the autism, like I totally see the path there. Because me and I'm gonna get to, because it sounds like I want to crap on your but I'm not. It's like if I have a toddler, they're gonna learn eventually. But the amount of time and effort you spend not knowing, like, where I could just spend a little bit of time with you and like you're in the right spot. And I say, because I think about whenever I hired a sleep trainer, and I was like, this is so ridiculous. Like, why am I paying somebody, I think it was like $500 to teach us how to like train our first child to go to sleep because I didn't know. And I was spending 2 hours a night putting them to sleep. And then we did the sleep training. I would set her down. Like, we went through the whole thing. It was like $500 or whatever. And I always think about like my hourly rate.
Absolutely.
Like, how much time am I spending? How much time did I just save myself per week by spending that money and learning? And that knowledge I was able to bring down to my second child. And, it really kind of revolutionized how I was a parent.
Absolutely. Yeah, sleeping's so important. There's three real areas in being a parent that you can't control for your child. You can get them up, you can dress them, you can put them in the bath, you can brush their teeth, you can drop them at daycare, drop them at school, drop them at grandma's. There's so many things you can do for them, but you can't eat for them, you can't sleep for them, and you can't poop for them.
Right.
And so these things really are in your sphere of influence, but they're not under your control as a parent. And if you have even one of these things out of whack, your whole family life will be out of whack.
Right.
And when you said about, absolutely you can understand how autistic children will potentially need help with some of these milestones. And,
well,
other
it's a little bit more
diagnoses.
clear because like I think about it,
Absolutely.
and it's not, it's a lot more clear and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it's like autism. It's like, I get it. Like he cannot eat like, we were eating like it's bizarre, but it's like a slice of pizza. We would eat the very edge of the pizza. And if somebody doesn't know or doesn't understand that, like, he literally will only eat chicken, pizza rolls, pizza. That's it.
Yeah.
And like, we've tried everything
Love to see
else.
a soluble fiber intake.
Right. And now he's kind of gone full circle. He eats all sorts of things, but it's just like, it took work with an OT.
Process.
It took a lot of work with an OT.
Absolutely.
And, you guys were doing God's work, and I see that. And then, I see the value on my own kids,
Yeah, and you'd be probably surprised at how many, I'm going to say typically developing children, so children that don't have a diagnosis, are hitting their development milestones pretty much, will experience a condition such as constipation or overactive bladder. They're really common conditions. And constipation, when I say that, I could spend hours, and I do. Right. I run training courses purely on this, and I spend hours talking about it. However, it's such a tricky subject. People think about classic hard poo, can't pass a poo, straining, spending ages doing a poo, or even not doing a poo very often. However, constipation, this is one of my favorite dinner party topics of conversation.
I love talking about, let's talk about how you're jammed up and let's get it out.
Exactly. Did you know that you can actually be so constipated that you end up with literal liquid poo running out of you unawares? You're totally unawares.
Wow.
So what happens, this is a fascinating topic. It's called overflow constipation. So what happens is you get so plugged up that all of your liquid poo coming from your small intestine, everything coming from your small intestine to your large intestine is liquid. Your large intestine is your bowel, and then it goes down to your rectum. So your rectum gets so blocked up with hard poo that the liquid poo seeps around the outside and just starts to leak out of your anus. Your anal sphincters can't hold on anymore, and you end up getting these little bits of soiling. So I get parents come to me every week saying, my child has diarrhea. And the first thing I think about is they're probably constipated. They're probably blocked up to here. And it's really counterintuitive. And
that doesn't make any sense. So if it's like, so they're constant, because like to me, that's, I would not know
the opposite, the complete opposite.
I would have no idea that, it would be, because it seems like it's, but I mean, these are the type of things that like, you kind of, especially with the autism, you see stuff because the diet is just such a challenge, Even with typically developing kids, they might not have the best diet in the world, but little things can trigger constipations. Maybe they don't like the toilets at school. So they're school age, maybe they're 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and the toilet at their new school is gross. And they really need to poop after lunch, right? We eat, we need to poop. That's the gastrocolic reflex. However, they don't want to go and sit on that school toilet because it's gross. In elementary school, we didn't even have doors on the stalls. So like, I mean, it was like, so like, how is it even possible?
Absolutely. And so that child holds on. Now, if you hold on, everyone's had this experience. You've needed to hold on for whatever reason. You're on the freeway, whatever. And after a little while, that feeling will go away. It's a little bit like me putting my yoga pants on in the morning. I buy my yoga pants 2 sizes too small because I like the tight squeeze. Basically shapewear at this point. And I spend a lot of time.
South Florida. I mean, it's a South Florida look.
Absolutely. It's iconic. I'm trying to assimilate. So I spend a lot of time getting my yoga pants on, and when I first get them on, they're really tight. They're giving me a tight squeeze. But 5 minutes later, you ask me about my yoga pants. I'm like, what yoga pants? I've habituated to that sensation. Same thing happens with your rectum. So the act of the rectum stretching is actually what tells your brain you need to poop. If you inhibit that reflex of pushing it out, if you send a message back down to your rectum saying, hold on, please, your anal sphincters will squeeze, and eventually that feeling just goes away. That feeling might go away for a long time. And kids, they get distracted. They're not thinking about, have I had a poop today? They're thinking about like, what's my favorite dinosaur today? And maybe it's been 3 or 4 days. And because they're school age, mom's not checking, dad's not checking, the teacher's not checking. All of a sudden, it's been 1.5 weeks, 2 weeks, and that child hasn't done a poo. You can imagine what's happening inside them. And I always say, if you're full of poo, you feel like poo, and you're going to act like a little poo.
That's right. I mean, that's my motto in life. So speaking of poo, right? We're going to talk about. We're going to go into our ad read, right? So, are you expanding, and is onboarding starting to become a challenge? Are you concerned about security and have no idea where to start? Are you considering hiring IT staff to handle your growing technology challenges? Look no further than Amazing.tech, your one-stop solution for your virtual IT department. With Amazing.tech, we specialize in creating a stress-free onboarding process for your new users. Once onboarded, leave the technical stress of managing your environment to us. Our team of skilled experts is dedicated to keeping your systems running smoothly 24/7. Focus on what you do best while we handle your technology needs. From BCIO services, technology procurement, and CRM management, we handle it all for one low monthly rate. Experience the ease of managed IT services with Amazing.tech. Visit our website at amazing.tech. That's OHMAZING.tech. Transform your IT worries into amazing results. Don't get jammed up with IT, right? Come see the specialist. But going back to, so we know, so your mentor, you guys had slowly worked it out, and after a while, you guys had a discussion. Did she approach you, or did you approach her, or how was it?
It's a good question. I think it was both of our idea, to be honest.
Okay.
It wasn't a search.
Okay.
It was congruency in our vision.
Okay.
We both have the same vision, but we have very different skill sets. And
She's as passionate as you are.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, just a special sort of a person, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Good.
absolutely. She talks about as much as I do, but we have very different skill sets, and it just seemed natural.
Well, it seems like you guys enhance each other well, because like you don't want to hire the same person that has the same skill set as you, who has the same opinion as you, that doesn't agree with that, because like then it's like you just hired another you.
Exactly.
Right. So you want somebody who counters a little bit, who provides a little bit of yin to your yang.
Absolutely.
So
that's something I'd really love to eventually do here stateside as well.
Gotcha. To me, it's like So let's talk stateside.
Absolutely.
So you guys, it's toilet time with Tabby.
Toilet time with Tabby.
Got you. And you're doing, and this is like I know you're Miami, you're Dade, but like Boca's a beautiful place for, there's a
Absolutely.
lot of, there's a lot of challenges, here in Boca, and a lot of moms and a lot of, it seems like there's a definite environment. What I'm saying is like, to me, it'd be a little bit more successful than like, I'm gonna say East Tennessee because that's where I'm from. So like, I don't want to offend anybody out there, but the market is there. There's more.
There's a lot of families here. A lot of people move here because of the beautiful lifestyle and the weather and everything. But that does mean that a percentage of families that move here leave their families behind, their extended family. And we all know it takes a village. We know that. But if grandma's not around to help you with potty training.
That's a good point. Yeah, if grandma's not around.
Yeah, or your childhood friends that had kids around the same age as you, but they're not in your city, and you don't get that natural learning of, well, what did you do with your kid? And sure, you catch up over Zoom or you have phone calls, but what's the reality of that when you're a parent? You're on the phone, you're like, stop eating that, don't touch that.
It's also been, 10, 15, 20 years, and it's like, well, I mean, after a while you forget these things.
Absolutely.
It's like, yeah, we did something. I don't remember what. It just kind of happened, because like, I don't know, but if someone who specializes and works with it. So you're doing like Mommy and Me consulting or...
Absolutely. So I always start with an initial phone call.
Okay.
And I am offering a free 30-minute phone call at the moment.
Beautiful.
To anyone residing across the United States.
Okay.
And that allows you to have a bit of a chat with me. And I'm not gatekeeping. I'm not trying to hook you in. It's not a sell. All I'm trying to do is provide some resources, a little bit of general advice, maybe something to go on with for the next couple of weeks to see if it genuinely helps you over that little hurdle.
Right.
I've found that people will always have children. There are more than enough children to go around.
Right.
And
they're all different.
Yeah, and I believe in truly giving information for free. If I was a gajillionaire, if I was a very rich woman, and I never needed to work a day in my life,
so
I would
is
still...
that different in Australia? So, I mean, I'm a gajillion. No, I'm just picking on you, but...
That's our currency.
Oh, fair enough. You guys did the Australian dollar, right?
We have an Australian dollar.
Fair enough.
It's doing poorly at the moment.
So it's Americans.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's why you have to make money in Australia, the US, and in England. You know what? Earn those pounds.
Inflation, it doesn't exist. We just print more. That doesn't. No, without going it. But So what's the difference between? So you're doing. I have a question there, but I don't want to abandon what you were just saying. So a free 30, because we do the same thing. It's like, hey, we want to develop a relationship.
Absolutely.
And so like, yeah, we're a business, but like we'll have a conversation where you can walk away and have some like
something
good
tangible
knowledge
to go away with, whether it's a couple of strategies, something to go away and read, a book, a website, a resource, a little app, a song, a piece of equipment, something for you to go away that's tangible that then you can try. And if that doesn't solve your problem, then you are more than welcome to come back to me.
Then schedule. That's exact because
Come back to me, and then we will do an initial, sort of another little initial phone call, dive deeper, get true clinical information from you. So how often is your kid really pooing?
Yeah.
Have you written it down? Because you might think it's every day, but once you start writing it down, looks like it's twice a week actually. Or
Right.
how much is your kid really drinking? Have you looked at that lately? And we'll do a little bit of a deep dive, gather some data. You know, you can't change what you don't measure. And then again, go away, give you some strategies. Everything I do is personalized. There's no one size fits all strategy because that's just not kids.
Right.
And if you've got to the point where I've given you a bit of free advice and it's still not happening, there might be something a little bit deeper going on.
Sure.
In which case, I don't just want to cookie cutter you and say, oh, well, read this handout or buy this, program. I want to know your family, know what's going to work for you. If mum and dad work full time and there's no point in me asking you to sit your child on the potty every 2 hours, I need to be talking to your nanny. I need to be talking to grandma. I need to be talking to daycare. And their environments might be different. Their way of working might be different. And so it needs to really fit in with that client. I've got a really client-centered model. And then, of course, if you want me in your home, I will come to your home. I will blow the bubbles. I will sit on your bathroom floor. I will sing the song. I will, do...
You sing a song.
I will. I
Let's
won't
hear
sing a
it.
song
No,
now. It is reserved purely for children.
Yeah, no, I act like an idiot in front of my, but,
You know
but
what it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, they bring it out.
It's fun, it's because they get, it's, I envy people that get to work with kids on a consistent basis because it's just what a pure form of like.
It's fun. It's the most fun you can have.
Right, right. So you do these, how long does a typical like engagement with toilet time with Tabby, so for like potty training, like what is the typical engagement length or like how long is it typically till we're like from here to success?
From where to go. So if your child has no underlying conditions such as constipation or overactive bladder, anything like that, then you can be out and done maybe in a couple of phone calls and maybe
Okay.
one home visit.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
If your child has constipation, overactive bladder, that might be a little bit longer. We might have to pull some other professionals in to help you out with that. And by other professionals, I mean going back to your family doctor, going back to your pediatrician, actually talking to them about this. But a lot of pediatricians and doctors, because they've got to know about everything relating to kids, they might
Yeah,
not
they're not gonna be the-
necessarily know how to treat constipation the most effectively.
Right.
And so that's where I can advocate for the family and say, no, you need to go back to them and ask for this, and this,
Right.
and really encourage them to continue to seek help for something that's often said like, oh, they'll just grow out of it, it'll happen, they'll figure it out. Well, I can tell you that's not necessarily the case. I've got kids that come to me 10, 11, 12 and older that still haven't figured it out because their bodies are not letting them.
I feel like this has got to have like such a, and now that we've had this conversation, like a important impact on like their self-esteem and like, their,
Absolutely.
yeah. Do you see like a level of confidence or do you see a shift in the kids once they've really started to understand, this and accept it and become a part of their life and they feel like they're where they should be?
Absolutely. I think especially around school and social implications, if you're that kid that's wet their pants at school, then that can stick with you for a long time.
Right.
And I see kids that are feeling very anxious, they're feeling very worried. And it goes deeper than that. If your body is misbehaving, if your bowel and bladder are misbehaving and they're being a bit tricky, and you don't feel like you're in control of your body, then how are you supposed to control anything in your outside world?
Right.
It makes you feel really small. It makes you feel out of control. It makes you feel like nothing's ever going to be right or good.
Okay.
And it can have a huge psychological impact. And not only, these things are waste products. Poop is a waste product. Your body is trying to get rid of that. It's toxic.
Right.
And so you can imagine if that's sitting inside you for long periods of time, what's that doing to you?
Right.
It can really mess you up. So I see kids that are happier, brighter, concentrating more, not flying off the handle as much.
I can see the path, and it's good, because you can tell somebody who really cares about like what they do and like how they are impacting children. Because my kid is 4 and she's like, "Daddy, I don't like to cry at school." So, and we had an accident one time at school, and it was like, I forget about these things. It's like their peers are looking at them, and even as young as 4, she's like cares about what I don't like crying at school. It's like, you're 4, honey.
Yeah,
Like,
we're social creatures.
yeah. And so it's like, what do you mean? And she's like shy and like reserved, and I want her to be a little bit more open. So I can only imagine how much that kind of impacts you.
Absolutely.
So we're running low on time. I guess, I'm not sure how, but like time has flown by, but like how, I wanted to ask, like your transition from your OT there and here you're a consultant. What's the differences is there a big difference between the service, or is it the title, or is it?
There is a bit of a difference between the
Okay.
service. So here in South Florida, I focus mostly on potty training.
Okay.
However, because I've got that background, medical training, allied health, and I have a really good supervision network, not only in Australia, but all over the world,
Uh-huh.
I have the knowledge to be able to advocate for families to seek out medical attention. So if I
Right.
think you actually need to see a pelvic physio for specific pelvic health or pelvic floor consultancy, or if you need to go back and see a doctor for medications, then I have enough knowledge to be able to refer on, rather than just saying, "Oh, it's okay, I can handle it," or we won't worry about that because it's outside of my
Yeah.
scope.
To me, it's like because you're getting a hell of a consultant for, yeah, I mean, because
I'm
it's
doing all the fun stuff now.
yeah, well, I mean, it's like, because here I know, translating like certifications and degrees and doing specific things, like you have to kind of like, when you go to a new place, I mean, even from state to state, and it can change, for
Absolutely.
attorneys, for instance, like if you pass the bar in New York, doesn't mean you can practice law in Florida, right? And so from like going from country to country, it's got to be, so even if there's hoops to jump through, and
Absolutely. Yeah, there's always hoops.
yeah,
But if if you're passionate about something, you know your stuff, and you enjoy living somewhere, then why wouldn't you?
right. And so that's what I was going to, I've got 2 more questions. First and foremost, anybody who is recently come here, or say, "Hey, I'm an immigrant and I'm listening here," or "Hey, I'm on visa or whatever, and I'm looking to broaden my horizons, and I would like to spend time in America, and I would like to continue or start a business here," what would you recommend them?
I would recommend that they find a really good community, put themselves out there.
Okay.
And this is something that I found. I had a really strong referral network in Australia, and it sounds a little bit facetious, but starting a business was almost too easy. From day
Mm,
one, I had phone calls and emails and referrals and clients, and
mm.
it was very smooth transition. Here, no one knows me. No one
Yes.
knows who I
You have to
am.
learn
No
how to
one knows
market.
my
Yeah,
background.
yeah.
And so I've been literally pounding the pavement. I go to daycare centers, I go to play groups, I go to parent groups, I speak to parents, I just put
Do
myself out there.
podcasts.
I do podcasts.
Right, right, right.
I do a little bit of social media. I'm little bit like you. I'm still learning.
Yeah.
And it's not my favorite, but it's what you have to do.
Right.
And so I think
That's an
it's
entrepreneurial thing. That's why I started this. I was like, cannot stand doing stuff like
do
this.
it.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. You have to put yourself out there.
Right.
And you have to be consistent about putting yourself out there.
Gotcha.
And build a network, build a community, build a network, and then the rest will happen.
Has there been anything that we haven't covered that you would like to cover in regard? Tell us the shit that we missed, right? So, like, tell me what we missed so far on the podcast that you definitely, we should cover that in regards to entrepreneurship or in regards to seeking out your services, anything.
Absolutely. So another piece of advice I guess I give to people is definitely to diversify, right?
Okay.
So I have a business in Australia. Obviously, that can pay my bills whilst I am building something in South Florida. And then I also deliver training for NHS, National Health Service nurses in the UK. So I do that via, webinar.
So you're multinational. I
Yeah.
mean, not just like, I mean, you're
Learn your time zones.
tri-national. Yeah.
Use 24-hour time or military time as it's called here.
Right.
So really diversify, because just what you want to do initially might not necessarily work out. So don't be scared to try a couple of different things, and then you've got options. I think that's really, really beneficial. And I think that's about it. I would really love to speak to more parents and families about what would be useful for them. I love running training, and so I think doing small little training groups, little potty training workshops is something that I'm starting to do here in conjunction with a couple of play groups, which is really exciting here in South Florida.
Right.
And that's something I'd really love to grow more.
Yeah, and I've seen your social. If you guys haven't followed you on Instagram, or what's your favorite social media platform? I know we don't Instagram. So
Yeah,
follow
I'm of that generation.
So right. Well, hit her up on the gram. No, I'm playing, but find her. It's good content.
Slide into my DM.
slide into the DM. Say, hey, what's that? Because I know it's like a pink stool, and so she's got all sorts of like small little tips and tricks and different things.
I love a toilet stool. Everyone should have one.
Right. That was on Shark Tank, or at least it was like
Squatty Potty.
It's a
fantastic brand. Other brands are available, but yeah, it's a really beneficial piece of equipment.
So that's been around prior to Squatty Potty, or Squatty Potty, the one that kind of like, did they actually come up with it?
Sort of the one that blew up, I think.
Okay, so the OTs have been doing this for a while.
They have.
Okay, all right. So I mean, Squatty Potty just finally branded it and threw it out there, and now they're multimillionaires.
Good on them.
Yeah, I know, right? So, so I was saying, like, we have a brand on, like, you could have your little pink stool with a poo sign.
Yeah, a little poop emoji.
Yeah, poop emoji, and then at Toilet Time with Tabby. How can people get in touch with you?
So you can get in touch with me via Instagram at Toilet Time with Tabby. I also have a Facebook page, which is like / is that how they do it? / TT with Tabby. And you could also go to my website, which is tabithapoole.com. How's that for narcissism?
You know what? Whatever works.
Absolutely.
So we have someone was telling me, like, they have a friend of mine who actually was on the first episode. She has a website. It's called meetwithkathy.com. And you go to it, and it literally is a bookings page to where people can look at it.
Absolutely.
It sounds
simple.
It sounds narcissistic, but A, you know my name, and B, you know exactly where we need to go.
Absolutely. And I do have a bookings page. So if parents want to check it out, you can book a free 30-minute Zoom or phone call consult. And that's just through my website.
Okay, so they can find that on the website. They can book a quick discovery. So we'll be passing out all of your information, all your socials and links on the show notes in case you're listening to this audio. So feel free to not panic, not lose your shit if you missed what we initially just said. So, but in any case, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a joy clearing this out and learning a little bit more about what I didn't know about being jammed up. So with that being said, I had an amazing week. I hope you guys have had an amazing week. This has been another fantastic episode of Amazing Entrepreneurs. I can't wait to speak to you guys again next week. All right, you guys take care. See you.